Stephen Art from Heart Talks. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So we finally meet. We've been trying to get together for a little while now, but you've been a busy bee, ain't ya? On
Certainly,
Sam on
certainly have.
Cows, mate. What's all that about?
Yeah, so I'm part of an HIV positive choir called Joyful Noise that's run by Naz. And
Yay, big up Naz.
yeah, yeah, and in January of this year we appeared on Britain's Got Talent as the first ever HIV positive choir to appear on the show. So it
Wow.
was yeah, it was mind blowing. Yeah, it really was. So
So,
yeah, it was good.
okay, we're going to talk about. Actually, now let me go back before I kind of probe you a little bit more on what happened on Britain's Got Talent. So, what's your story? Your HIV story?
My story. So my story, I've been positive for nearly 19 years.
Mm.
Um, 2006, and I was one of those people who that I always thought that you read about in the newspaper and it happened to somebody else. I had my drink spiked in a club, and was
Oh,
and I woke up the next morning very unsure about anything.
yeah,
But the physical evidence and the blood work that was later done at the hospital showed
yeah.
trace of hypnol, and also the physical evidence showed that I'd been raped. And I remember
Yeah.
this really nice nurse saying to me, all your blood tests for STIs have come back clear, but you must come back within 3 months for a second HIV test.
Hmm.
But I couldn't I couldn't deal with what had happened, because
Yeah.
just my brain couldn't compute it. And I went away from there and I didn't go back for 6 months. I just tried to
Mm.
find anything that I could do to forget. And lo and behold, 6 months later, I thought I need to start moving on. And I felt the worst that could possibly happen had already happened. And
Mm.
I went back to the hospital and tested positive.
But
So
when that happens, it feels like you're the only person in the world. So lonely.
yeah, 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 you do. You feel as if no, even though I said you read about it in the newspaper,
Yeah.
when it's you, all of a sudden, you just feel like you're the only one.
Yeah.
And time has shown me that I'm definitely not the only one. Um, Even more with men, going through what I went through, it happens more often than is
Yeah.
spoken about. So yeah, so that was that's how I became HIV positive. And yeah.
So I'm kind of curious. So, when you first found out, was you like, did you tell many people, or was you kind of quiet about it, or
Mm-mm.
did you?
I remember I grew up in an environment where in my family life was very my I was adopted and my adopted mother had schizophrenia. So as a
Mm.
child, we were always taught, don't tell anyone, never tell anyone.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the doctors saying to me, advising me, it's probably best that you keep this a secret. And I went away and kept it a secret for 2 years. But it nearly destroyed me in those 2 years because again, I was alone. I felt alone because I wasn't tapping into any services, any support, because I think the thing with rape is with domestic abuse, often you feel as if it's your fault. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I had to go through that period of time until I got to the point where I was like, nah, that wasn't my fault. Somebody took advantage. Um, but yeah, so for 2 years, I told my best friend and two other friends, and that was it.
Do you know what, Stephen? It's so kind of I'm not sure what word to use. The word warming comes up, but connection maybe.
Yeah.
When you say, you was brought up in an environment where you were told, don't say nothing, don't
Mhm.
tell no one. Because I
Yeah.
can relate to that. I can relate to what will people say, don't say nothing. what will people say? Don't say nothing. And to me, if I had to sum all that up, it's the word judged.
Yep. Yeah,
Don't
it's
let
just
people judge us, because if they judge us, they get in our business, they've got something to say. We don't want no one in our business.
yeah, exactly. And that's what it was, it was the judgment from neighbors, the judgment from, your peers and things like that. And my family were very much of that era when what the neighbors thought mattered.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and so I grew up that way, and
Yeah.
even so I was 32 when I was diagnosed, and I felt the same way. I felt I can't tell anybody because I'll be judged.
Mm. So what was a turning point for you then, when you thought,
The turning point was 2 years in, when I think what I waited for was death, because I'd grown up during Section 28. So our sexual education at school was next to nothing.
don't get pregnant, that's it.
And
Well,
I
the
know,
girls.
yeah,
See?
they taught us that as well, and that was about it. It was like, okay, but yeah, it was very, very minimal, and HIV was not even mentioned because of,
Yeah.
obviously, it
Oh,
was
because
a
you don't get it in England, do you?
exactly, and
No.
it was classed as the gay disease, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it still had all those tags on it, and so yeah, I kind of I didn't know anything about that. So I suppose the turning point for me was just after those years of waiting to die,
Yeah.
um because I'd seen, I'd been very much a kid, because I'm an actor.
Mm.
I'd watched the news, I'd read newspapers and magazines and things, and so I'd seen Freddie Mercury die, I'd seen Rock Hudson.
Yeah.
So I'd seen celebrities die of this horrible,
Yeah.
horrible
Yeah.
virus that was killing almost everybody. And I thought, well, that's what's going to happen to me. And I
Mm.
waited for that to happen for 2 years. And whenever I tell my story, I always kind of have a little giggle about it and say it's okay to laugh at this, because
Yeah.
I woke up one morning and just was like, I was bored, Lou. I was just bored of waiting to die,
Yeah.
because I was
Yeah.
like, it doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. So
Yeah.
I need to do something, because the thing about living a secret, and
Mm.
is is that you stop enjoying life. You stop,
Yeah.
involving, I love theater, and I stepped back. All these kind of things that I loved, I stepped back from. And I thought, I need to do something. And somebody suggested journaling, and I was like, nah, it's not my thing. And then they said, why don't you write your story? And I
Mm.
thought, I could do that. And it was completely for myself, never ever had any plans of
Mm.
sharing it with anybody. Um, and then my agent asked me if she could read it, and I said yes. And she phoned me in the early hours of the morning, and she said, "You need to do something more with this." She said,
Yeah.
it has so much power."
Yeah. Yeah.
I turned my scribbles into a one-man show, which I took to New York
Oh,
in
oh,
2000.
amazing.
Yeah, I took it to New York in 2009. And I was still here. I was, in the UK, I was still, no, but, I was still very much in the closet about HIV. Uh,
Yeah.
and I went to New York and told my story. And I hoped that I would get a month over there, because that would have been perfect. I would have got a
Yeah.
month. It would have been somewhat of a success, but I didn't get a month. I got 9 months, and it closed
Oh, wow.
and it
Wicked.
clo-
Yeah.
closed off Broadway.
Oh,
So
wow.
so it was mind blowing, and I think it showed me the power and the reach our stories have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then, and then, and
Yeah.
then and then after that, I've just been telling my story ever since. So
Yeah. So what I'm hearing here is that you you came from a background where we don't tell no one. What will the neighbours say? We don't say nothing. And you've become so visible now. You've gone to Broadway with your play, and you're on Britain's Got Talent and stuff. And so you came from telling just 2 or 3 friends to that. And are you saying because you got bored with it? Is that what you said? You got, why
Yeah.
did you?
So I got bored waiting to die.
Yeah,
Um,
that was it. Bored
yeah,
waiting to die.
yeah, yeah. But I think I just couldn't. I just couldn't hold on to another secret. That
Yeah.
that was the tipping point for me. I just couldn't hold on to one more secret. Because I knew that I wasn't functioning and being involved in life as much as I should be and could be. And yeah, and that's why I decided to just put it all out there. All, you
So,
know,
so what does it feel like now you don't have that secret?
it feels liberating.
Doesn't
It
it
feels
just?
freeing. I remember that the few people that did used to know, if ever I spoke to them about it, we'd suddenly take our tone down and we'd whisper and
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah,
now I'm like,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like,
But
you know,
but Stephen, don't you agree that it's more than HIV now? You kind of got a life back.
yeah,
But it's not just about HIV, it's about freeness in all aspects of one's life. If you can get through this, you can just get through anything. And we live in an age now, don't we, with social media and what will the gram say and what will Facebook and TikTok and all these kind of images of societal norms of how we should be. But then once you've come to peace with HIV, it really does help, I think, in the wider aspect of one's life. Do you agree with that?
yeah, definitely. Because as you say, it wasn't actually only HIV. I always say
Yeah,
HIV is a part of my story, but it's not my whole story. And
yeah,
there was my adoption, there was physical abuse, there was sexual abuse at home,
yeah.
there was my mother's schizophrenia and all these kind of things. And so I was opening the door on all of those things. So I didn't only become free from the burden of HIV, I became free from, the burden of all those other secrets, that had held me down for so many years. So yeah, it was very freeing, very liberating.
Because, as human beings, we're like little tribes, aren't we? We like to be liked. We want to be wanted. We want to be part. Safety is one of our core fundamental kind of needs, to feel safe and to have shelter.
Yeah.
And then when we think of family and what family are going to say, I understand why some people living with HIV may not want to tell family because of the
Okay.
concern about what family will say. Now, where I am now, I would say if your family don't accept it, that's actually a blessing in disguise, because maybe it is time to kind of, uh, you know, um, look at different ways of living.
Yeah.
Because if your family can't be there for you unconditionally, maybe it's time to look at other ways of living. Because if we're scared, if we are people living with HIV and we're scared that someone is going to reject us because of HIV, as much as that hurts, as much as it's painful, maybe that needs to happen.
Yeah.
Because so how was it for you? Did you, when you told your family and the wider circle of people?
So I was I was kind of disjointed from my family from a young age.
Right.
My family just fell apart really. So by
Yeah.
the time I was 15, I'd gone into care.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, it was easier because I didn't have to tell them. But then on the other hand, it was more difficult because I didn't have their support. So it was kind of it took many many years. It probably wasn't until about 3 4 years ago that I'm still in touch with my cousin, and I said to him, I need to let you know I'm living with HIV. And there was that usual, oh, but again, it was more for me, if that's, because I just wanted to be, I didn't want it to be a secret hanging over me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just like, look, this is me. And I suppose I wasn't, because of my family background, I wasn't overly worried if they said, oh, well, we don't, because I've coped, I coped without them from a very, very young age.
Right, yeah.
I kind of knew I could do it. It wasn't that I needed their approval or anything like that. It was just,
Mm,
yeah, it was more for me, to say, you know I- this is it, and if you accept it,
mm.
great, and if you don't, then that's fine.
That's
you know
fine too. Absolutely. So, how do you live well with HIV? Like, what was your journey to kind of coping with it, and has that changed?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't, as I said, I didn't use any support systems at all.
Mm.
In the first 2 years, I just, the thing was, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. So
Yeah, I
if I,
hear you.
if I'd walked into a support right back out, because I just knew that I wasn't at peace with it myself.
Mhm.
So it wasn't until I did my show, I spoke openly about it in New York, that I started being able to be involved here in the UK with, I work with Positive Voices with THT. I work with NAS. I work with a National AIDS Trust.
Yeah,
So again, it goes back to using my story, changing a negative into a positive.
yeah,
And the rape, what had happened to me, the not knowing was all a negative. It was, and I got tired again of allowing that man to have power over me.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because he had power over me for a long, long time, and
yeah,
um, but now I feel as if I've taken back the power, and
yeah,
that's my coping mechanism. That's my,
yeah.
making something good come from something bad.
Yeah, I can so relate to you. So, if there's someone watching this and they've either just been diagnosed with HIV, or they're living with HIV and they've just got that heavy weight that you and I know how that feels, what would you say to them?
First of all, if we were in the same room, I'd just want to put my arms around them and just give them
Mm,
a hug, because,
yeah,
as you said, you feel so alone. And despite the fact of the 37 million that have come and gone before us, with this virus,
yeah,
the feeling alone is still very real. I speak to people, regularly, who are getting diagnosed in 2020, 21, 22, 23, and they still have that feeling of feeling alone. So I would just want to put my arms around them and just hug them and let them know that they're not alone. And then and
yeah,
then tell them to do it their way. Do it their way.
yeah,
Their
yeah,
way is the right way, Lou.
yeah.
You have to do it your way, because as much as people want to help and want to guide, and yeah, just do it your way.
That's really lovely. I love that. So, I think you've been part of the Rock the Red Ribbon campaign. I
Yeah.
think I've seen you in a few bits. So why was it, why did you get involved in that campaign? Why is it important to you?
So I think that the red ribbon, has, for me, the red ribbon was always something that, I remember they wore the red ribbons at the Oscars, in the
Yes.
80s. And I remember seeing that red ribbon, 80s, early 90s, and seeing that red ribbon and Elizabeth Taylor talking about
Mm,
the AIDS Foundation and things like that. And I knew that I was a gay man, and I knew that what I'd seen in the media, that this virus was looked on as being a virus that gay men got. So
yeah.
I suppose there was always an element of fear in my heart, of, oh, I hope that doesn't ever happen to me. Um,
Mm,
but I also knew that it was and now I know it's a much wider community. But at that time, one, it was the entertainment community, and two, it was the gay community. And it's always, the red ribbon has always had such an impact on my on my heart, you know, because we wear that red ribbon for so many reasons. So many different people wear it for so many different reasons. And but I always feel that we cannot forget the past, but we have to keep looking forward to the future, you know. And wearing that red ribbon, you know, on World AIDS Day or whenever you're wearing it, you know, is all about, for me, is all about those things.
Oh, that's just amazing. You know, as you're talking, I just wanted to say thank you for the work that you do. I think it's absolutely amazing. I think you're so inspiring. And I'm really kind of, you know, overwhelmed, you know, to hear your story and the intricacies behind it. And the fact that you've decided to kind of help people, helping people just by talking about your story so people know that they're not alone. So, you know, on behalf of the millions of people out there, thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
I bow to the divine in you, brother. Take care. Stay on the line. We'll have a little chat after. Thanks for talking.
No probs.